Hello everyone, welcome back to the Benchwarmers Podcast. In this week's episode, I'm delighted to be joined by Chesterfield midfielder Jonathan Smith. Jonathan, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. Nice to be invited on.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for coming on. But I think we'll go right back to the beginning before we talk about your time at Chesterfield. Obviously, you came through the youth academy at Morecambe, and whereas most people usually come through academies in Premier League or Championship sides, you came through a non-league team. So what was it like coming through a non-league youth system? Did you find there was more chance of you breaking into the first team?
Yeah, I think I got lucky really in terms of joining a system like Morecambe that had a first team manager in Jim Harvey that loved to bring young players on, and he got a lot of his players through that academy. So there was opportunities, and he sort of took a shine to me from quite early really, and it was just I feel very lucky to have met Jim Harvey along with the U team manager at the time, Dickie Danson. They were both really good with me, so they just helped me so much, giving me the opportunity which every young player wants.
Yeah, I know you had a few loan spells as well from Morecambe, including Bamber Bridge and Fleetwood Town, where you actually got promoted with them. So, as a young lad, then coming through on a loan at another club, obviously, how good of a feeling was that?
Yeah, I mean, it was a bit of a strange one in terms of I was getting quite close to breaking through into the first team at 18 under Jim Harvey, but he had a heart attack before one of the games, so I had to sort of step out from football. And Sammy McElroy came in, and new managers had their own ideas, and I was just a young kid at the time, so he sort of sent me on loan to Fleetwood, which was just great experience, to be honest. Playing men's football where 3 points mattered every week, and it was tough, tough pitches, going to tough places. But yeah, it was great for me. I grew up a lot in them few months, and had a little bit of success while I was there.
Are you surprised to see how far Fleetwood have come?
I'm not, to be honest, because when I joined at the time, they were at the stadium is totally different from where I was. But the chairman had massive plans. The budget back then was big, and they were all talking then we will be in the Football League in 5 years, and they just meant business, and I could just see the way they were doing things on and off the pitch that they were sort of ahead of the other teams at that level.
We'll talk about it briefly before we actually started, but obviously you did choose to leave Morecambe when they did offer you a new contract. But what was your sort of thoughts behind that? Why did you choose to move on?
The big thing was Jim Harvey, like I mentioned, because he'd left, but he'd then got the job at Forest Green, so he was now Forest Green Rovers manager, and he took to me since I was a 16-year-old. He knew me well, and he straight away said, "Look, don't re-sign at Morecambe. Come down here with me. I'll give you more opportunities." And Morecambe had been promoted to League Two then under Sammy McElroy, and was sort of, looking for league experienced players. And I just didn't see, how I would fit in there. I thought it would be another season of going out on loan, really. Whereas I really wanted to, start pushing now. And I thought, it's going to be a bit of a change for me moving sort of 3 hours away from home, but I had to take the chance, and Jim Harvey believed in me, so that's why I made the decision to sign for Forest Green.
Yeah, and were Forest Green a vegan only club back then, or is that something that's more recent?
Yeah, that's more recent. There's been a lot of change at that club since when I was there. They didn't really have much money. I think even my dad was sort of offered to buy some shares in the club at the time because they were so, struggling for money. But it was such a good family club. They looked after me and my family, and they were just really good time for me. Young lads were getting chances, and fortunately, it was just a right place at right time for me to go down there and get some, good experience.
Yeah, you had a good few years at Forest Green, including 1 year where you played alongside Stuart Fleetwood, who in that season was the league's top scorer, got 28 goals. As a central midfielder like yourself then, how good is it to know that if you make the chances that you have someone in front of you who can easily score them?
Yeah, Fleets will probably tell you himself that season, Stuart Fleetwood was absolute dynamite. I think, half the clubs in the Football League were interested in him because he was just finishing, and everything. But I think part of it was down to, the really good style of play we were playing down there. We were creating a lot of good chances for him due to the, the good football that Jim Harvey was getting us playing. But, Fleets was still to this day one of the best finishers I've seen, with pace as well. He surprised me how he didn't really, push on even further because, he had such good attributes, and he was a good, hard-working lad as well.
Yeah. And in that season as well, you had a massive win away from home, which was the biggest away win in the league that season. You won 6-0 away over Weymouth. Was you part of that team?
Yeah, I was in the squad of that. I can't quite remember that game too much, though. I remember being part of it, but yeah, it was a big win. I think Weymouth were going through, a tough time and playing a lot of young players, but yeah, it was a good day out for us.
Yeah, definitely 6-0 away. Very decent. But then also at Forest Green as well, you had a game in the FA Cup third round in the 2008-9 season. You scored against Derby County in was it Derby County? Derby County, I believe, in a 4-3 loss. But obviously, how big of an occasion was that for you? You were still fairly young, scoring against a massive team like Derby for a non-league side like Forest Green. How big was that for you?
Massive occasion for me, and I still love the FA Cup today. That was one of the, a great day for me and my family. I had my mum, my dad, down there watching, and I managed to score a really good goal in front of a full house at Forest Green. We're, playing against some big names there at the time. Robbie Savage, I think, was playing in midfield against me, and it was just great memories of that goal. Still watch it back sometimes today. It's just, it was one of, I don't think I could hit a ball any sweeter than that.
Yeah. Then Stuart Fleetwood, I think I've kind of messed up the sort of ordering here when the seasons went by, but Stuart Fleetwood did move on eventually, and in came Andy Manga, I can't pronounce it. And obviously he had another great season as well. So was it sort of, revolving for you maybe, that the fact that even if a striker with the quality of Fleetwood will move on, Forest Green have the pulling power to put in another one to obviously help boost your stats?
I think Fleets deserved his move for how well he did. But like I said before, the style of play we were playing really, helped the striker. We sort of played a way which, was always built around getting the number 9 in behind the defence and get them chances. And I think Stuart Fleetwood came to Forest Green when just to try and get his career going, really. He had a few moods here and there and not really, set the world alight. Came to Forest Green, scored all them goals and then moved on. And I think Andy Mangan was the same. He'd had a few different clubs at Accrington, Bury, and not really worked out. And he came to Forest Green, and straight away he was sort of Stuart Fleetwood's replacement, doing what he was doing, and he was scoring the goals. And I think credit to Mangs for coming in and doing that.
Yeah, and obviously that for your final season for Forest Green, it didn't really go to plan. They finished in the relegation place, but financial problems, I believe it was, for Salisbury meant that they couldn't continue, so they were relegated instead. How much of a relief was this for you?
It was, yeah. I mean, I'd had a really good season. I think I'd scored 8 or 9 goals. I think I was the top goal scorer at the club, and I'd been played every game, and I was doing well. I felt like I was playing well every week. We just had a stop-start season with managers leaving, players leaving. The budget was cut. We were struggling for injuries and players, but I think we should have stayed up really. On the results that we had towards the end, I think just cost us. But personally, I was even though I was distraught, to be honest, with how it ended, I knew that I was good enough to push on just through how I'd played that season.
Yeah, and then so what sort of influenced the move to York? Did things just not go well at Forest Green after that, or was it kind of just came about? I don't know.
It was more, I think for me, I'd been there 3 years and I just had this desire to get to the Football League. And for me, I was desperate to play in the Football League, and I knew I was good enough. It was just about someone giving me a chance. And I just, due to the financial problems at Forest Green, I just thought, if I can get to a team, if the Football League option doesn't come, if I can get to a team that's going to be challenging right at the top, then there's a chance of me getting up that way into the league. And York came in for me, who just lost in the playoff final the year before. Showed a strong interest in me, and it was back up north, closer to where my family lived. Sort of took that opportunity to go there, and I just saw it as maybe a bit of a stepping stone for to push on. Yeah,
obviously they've recently moved out of Bootham Crescent. So, what would you say your favourite memory is of that stadium?
We played Crawley in a game at Bootham Crescent, which I scored in. At the time, Crawley was spending big money and try and work their way through the leagues. And I think Steve Evans was the manager at the time. He had some big players, and I scored, and it was a full house. And I just remember scoring in front of the packed, I think it's the Longhurst stand behind the goals. And I just remember that moment. I think just for one that stands out, I would probably say that one.
Yeah, that sounds like quite a good moment. I think they've always had really good fans as well, York. So obviously it works better in that sense. But yeah, obviously they also had Gary Mills as their manager at the time. I believe he came in towards the end of your first sort of stint at York. But what was your relationship like with him? Because obviously he did go on to re-sign you after your stint at Swindon.
Yeah, brilliant. Gary Mills was great with me from when he come in. When he first got the job, I was sort of out of the team because I'd been sent off in a few games before, and Gary came in, put me straight back in the team. Made me feel wanted, made me feel one of the main players, and just took with him as a really good man manager. Gary Mills, I think a lot of people say that about him. He's not a tactical genius, but in terms of a man management that gets the best out of his players, Gary's like that, and I think he probably gets that from his sort of Nigel Clough. He takes a lot from him, I think, just the way he does it. But yeah, I really enjoyed working for Gary. He's a proper football man, and yeah, he did well for my career too.
Yeah, and I think it was in the same season. I think it was your first time there where you actually got to the FA Cup third round, played Bolton Wanderers, who at the time were a Premier League club. Obviously not anymore, but how obviously great of an occasion was that? Because I was reading a match report about it, and it says that York were really lucky to eventually come out as the losers. So how just great of an occasion was that for yourself to play against a Premier League club?
Yeah, it was a great day. We went to Bolton in the third round, who at the time were one of a decent Premier League outfit with, I think we took 5,000 fans from York. There were some big players playing for Bolton that day: Marcus Alonso, Kevin Davis up front, Elmander. There's a few others. Rodrigo is now at Leeds. Some good players. Yeah. They had some good players, and it was just a great, test for us to go there. And we played well. We were playing good football at the time, though, and I think maybe Bolton underestimated us a little bit, and we missed some great chances to win. I can't remember the goalkeeper. I think it was Bogdan, the goalkeeper. I don't know where he's at now, but he made a great save, and I think a bit of quality from them in the end. Sean, I can't remember if it was Davis or Elmander who scored, and we just couldn't get it back. But it's a great day out, yeah, to go there, take all those fans there, great atmosphere. It was a local club for me as well, so I had all my family and friends there. Yeah, it was a special one.
Were they supporting Bolton or were they supporting York?
They were supporting York because most of my friends and family are Preston fans, so they would definitely be up for York. Yeah.
Are you a Preston fan then?
Yeah, I am. To be honest, that's my team who I follow. Yeah, I don't get to. Well, obviously, no one's watching at the moment, but due to playing, I don't get to see them as much. But if I haven't got a game on a Tuesday or whatever, I do try and get down to Deepdale and see how they're doing.
Yeah. I suppose because at Fleetwood, I'm pretty sure they were. Are they rivals? Well, maybe not back then when obviously they're a non-league club, but are the rivals with Preston?
It's more Blackpool is the big rivals for Preston. Blackpool and Preston are big rivals. There's always been a big rivalry there with Blackpool and Burnley, but Fleetwood not so much because they've sort of come up through the non-league sort of system. But yeah, Blackpool is the main one.
I completely got off there, but back onto York then. Obviously, you played alongside Robbie Weir as well, who you would eventually go on to play with at Chesterfield. So, what's your relationship like with Robbie?
Yeah, Robbie's a good lad. I think he's playing over in Ireland now for Crusaders, I think, which is sort of back home for him, where he's from originally. But yeah, Robbie came on loan from Sunderland to York originally, and you could see he had the bit between his teeth, and he wanted to make something of himself. He's a few years younger than me. I think when he came, he was only sort of 20, 21, but I could see then that this lad's going to have a decent career because he was, he's hungry to do well, and he had that bit of sort of, Irish in him where he was sort of a fighter, and I think, I can see, even back then that this lad's going to do all right, and I mean, sort of come to Chesterfield, and linked up with Robbie again, and Robbie, I think, calmed down a little bit at Chesterfield, not so aggressive, but still really experienced and knows the game.
Yeah, and unfortunately, York didn't actually get the playoffs that season, but you did get moved to the EFL anyways with Swindon Town. How did this move come about then? Did they pay like a fee for you, or was it just like we just didn't agree a contract with York, or?
No, I still had another year on my contract, and York were really keen to keep me there. Gary Mills were desperate to keep me in. Sort of for a big promotion push. And to be honest, I was happy. I was playing really well at York. Gary was great for me. But I always had that desire. I was desperate to get to the Football League. And I sort of, I had a call from someone at Swindon to say, would I be interested in a move there? And they were willing to pay. I had a buyout clause in my contract. I can't remember if it was 30 or 50 grand to get me out of there if I wanted to leave. So obviously Swindon came in, and it was a bit of, when they'd sort of heard of the interest, I just remembered I'd seen something on Sky Sports News that a big name had just gone in there. I couldn't quite remember. I got off the phone and I checked it out, and it was Di Canio.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, it could go either way with him. I didn't know how he was going to be as a manager in League Two, but for me, it was just about getting into the Football League. It could have been any one manager. It was just for me, it was about the opportunity to prove myself as sort of, the Football League player. So I was quite keen to get that done, even though there was a little bit of sadness to leave York behind, because I knew they were sort of onto a good thing there under Gary as well.
What was your relationship like with them, with Paolo Di Canio? Because obviously he's known for being a bit of a hothead.
Yeah, hothead is probably the least what you call him. He's crazy. He's crazy as you could imagine, but he's passionate and he loves football, and he wants to win. And at the time, he was brilliant for me. He coached me, he made me better. He was extremely hard on me. I felt he was as hard on me as he was anyone. But I sort of, because like I said, I wanted that opportunity in the Football League. It was. I was sort of hanging off every word really. This guy, when he joined in, he was the best player, and still at whatever age he was. But yeah, it was fantastic, and I was getting in the team, which was the main thing. He was playing me, and I was doing well, and I felt like I was progressing, and the team was winning. I was playing with good players, and yeah, it was just a good time.
Do you find then, like, sort of in training, because obviously you get these managers where perhaps they didn't have as good of a career, they might not be too great at football, but obviously having a manager like Di Canio who had a fantastic career, played the Premier League and all that, do you find in training it works better because he can like show you what you need to do, or that he knows what he's on about?
Yeah, it's difficult because it's gone either way. I've had managers that have played at top level and can't do any coaching and can't sort of get the head around it. Whereas I think it took Paolo a bit of time to get his head around League Two football and what it was about. He signed a lot of sort of foreign players to start with, and to be fair to him, a lot of them struggled with sort of the pace and the 100 mile an hour of what League Two was back then. I think there's a lot more football played in it these days, but even going back sort of then at the time, it was there was a lot of battling to be done first, and he's sort of getting his head around that. But he brought a mentality to the team, a winning mentality through the whole club, which you hear about now at sort of your Celtics and your Man Cities and your Liverpools, your big clubs that they go into games expecting to win, and that's what we had at Swindon. I ended up thinking, are we going to win today? Are we going to win? It was going to be, yeah, we're going to win. We're turning up expecting to win, and that's what it was like every week. And that was down to him, just the way he drilled that into the lad.
Yeah, of course, the winning mentality worked out because you finished as champions. You were obviously a regular in that squad as well. So, how big of an achievement was it for you to not only make it to the EFL with Swindon, but to then get promoted to League One?
Yeah, it was a great achievement. I've worked hard for it. I'd worked all that season. I'd given it my life, basically. It's well documented on the Paolo Di Canio. You don't get days off training, but that suited me. I was training 7 days a week. I was in Swindon on my own, and it wasn't a problem for me, to give that my life at the time. And, I think it was a great time to be at Swindon. The fans were behind us, the town was behind us, and it was just a good time. And, we deservedly won the league.
Yeah, and am I right thinking you also played alongside Matt Ritchie whilst at Swindon?
Yeah, I played with Matty, who's, it was interesting when I first came to Swindon, and, I met Matty because straight away I noticed his ability, but I just thought, obviously at the time, I think he was only 21 or 22 maybe, and I'll have been 24, 25, and I just thought for a young lad, he's a good player. I remember saying I just thought he was a young lad because he was so small. He just looked really young. I thought he was like 18, and I thought, when I first arrived there, I just thought, he's one of the young lads, but he's got ability, and for a young lad. That's what I thought. But then he ended up, I didn't realise he was 22, and he ended up being our main player, top goal scorer, just talisman, Paolo loved him, and he was just left foot, right foot, one of the hardest shots I've seen with accuracy as well. And, a hard worker as well. He was one of the first to train in, one of the last to leave. He put the hours in, and I could just see he was going one way. He's done probably, even better than what I thought, playing that many games in the Premier League and in international. But, fair play to him because he put the work in.
Yeah. And unfortunately, things didn't go to plan after that because obviously Swindon did go on to transfer issue, which obviously then propelled them to move to York. But as a player, obviously, you just contributed massively to a promotion season. How disappointed were you to find out that obviously they didn't want to keep you on?
Yeah, devastated. I think I've spoken about this before. I played all them games and I was a massive part of it. To then get told, the club are going in a different direction. Paolo had this idea we're getting sort of links with Tottenham and Chelsea. We're going to be getting players on loan from there. He sort of thought, I think he was trying to be fair to me and said, look, your game time is going to be limited. For me, it was a big blow because I'd worked so hard that season and I'd given it everything. And I think towards the end of the season, I'd given it that much that maybe my intensity levels did drop a little bit, and sort of that might have cost me sort of moving forward. I might have got judged off my last 3 games because I felt overall in the season I was one of the, the better players in that squad in terms of performances and training and everything. And it was tough to take, but I knew, I was good enough now. I just won the league. I'd played all these games. I didn't need, to take a back step. I wanted to keep pushing.
Yeah. So how did the move to York come about then? Was it just through connections with Gary Mills?
Yeah, basically Gary had heard about, obviously transfer list availability. I'd worked with Gary before and I just thought, yeah, let's go back there. I was playing really well under Gary. They got promoted. It was a no-brainer. Financially, it was good. It was, and I just thought it's a good opportunity to, go back to somewhere where I know this manager's going to play him in the position that I want to play.
Yeah.
Do well there for a season. Let's see how it goes. That was sort of my thoughts. I just wanted to have another season to keep playing. It didn't turn out as well as I would have liked, to be honest, but, that's football.
Yeah, so obviously you proved yourself in League 2, got promoted to League 1. Did you have any reservations then, obviously dropping down into the National League to rejoin Luton? Not rejoin, but yeah.
Yeah, signed for Luton on loan to start with. Yeah, I did have reservations, to be honest. Luton were desperate to sign me the season I went to York. They showed a massive interest in me. The chairman drove over to Swindon to meet me. The manager did. They basically, I left training and they rang me and said, look, we're in Swindon now, come and meet us. Because I was still contracted to Swindon at the time. But I'd sort of said to them, look, I'm not interested in dropping, down to non-league. I believe I'm good enough to play League 1. I've just got promoted into. They said, well, look, come and meet us. We just want to have a chat. And then I sort of palmed them off. But then they still, made the effort to come to Swindon and say, we're in Swindon now, come and talk to us. And they pushed me really hard. But I ended up deciding that, look, I want to stay in the football here. I've worked that hard to come here. Why should, I thought I had a given right. Why I don't want to drop down. That was my thoughts. So when sort of York, just struggling for confidence and form, really struggling to get back into the rhythm of, I think probably when people say don't go back, I think that's probably, a thing there with me going back to York. I think I'd been there and I'd moved on. I got my move from York. I'd worked hard and I got out of that. And now I was back there and it was sort of maybe a bit of a mental motivation thing. As hard as I worked, I just couldn't produce the form, but the team was struggling as well, which made it maybe a little bit more difficult. And I think with me just getting promoted from League 2 with Swindon and being champions, I think Gary, the chairman, everyone at York, expected miracles from me all of a sudden. They expected me to be scoring 10 goals for York. And, that weren't the sort of player I was really. I was a box-to-box midfielder, get you 5 to 8 goals a season. I think all of a sudden they expected me to just be doing things, what I can't do basically. And I just didn't settle the same, so to go on loan to Luton just to find my feet again. To start with was just to, go for a couple of months really, just to, get some games under my belt, get my confidence back.
Yeah. So what sort of prompted you to make the move permanent then? Was it, did you just enjoy time at Luton, or was it maybe you saw the ambition of the club?
Basically, yeah, both of them. I went there first game for Luton when we played away at Hereford first home game, 10,000 there full. And I just thought, atmosphere, this club's going place, this club, there's some good players here. I scored a couple of goals while I was on loan. The fans were taking to me. They could see the ambition. I thought, I want to stay here. This is where I want to be. And it was moving 3 hours down the road to Luton. I had to find my own accommodation, all that sort of stuff. But I really Gary Sweet at the time, who's the chief executive, I'm still, good friends with now, was desperate to keep me there. And I just thought, I feel really wanted here. And, imagine getting promoted with Luton, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah. And in that team as well, you had Andre Gray, who's going to have a great career playing in the Premier League. I think he's at Watford now, I think.
Watford.
Watford. But yeah, obviously you were with him for the first sort of 2 years whilst at Luton. How good a player was he? Because obviously he's going to have a fantastic career. So back at Luton in non-league, you would have thought he'd be incredible.
Yeah, I'm really pleased for Andre because when I went there, it was a bit of a rough diamond really in terms of he had so much pace, so much power, so much strength. He was so much stronger, quicker, and faster than everyone else. But his ability-wise on the ball was just a bit wild. He'd be through one-on-one and he'd be smashing it well over the bar, and he was just a bit. He just needed, tuning up a little bit. But you could see, this guy's got, great power, strength, and pace. You put him up front against any defender, I don't care who they are. He had that power and pace, especially at that level at the time, just to get away from him. And he was doing that, regularly. In big games as well, in cup games against, we played Wolves in the third round of the cup. One of my first games for Luton, actually, and we won, but he destroyed them that day on his own. And I just thought at that point, this guy's too good for us. This guy can definitely push on. It was going to be a matter of time, and fair play to him because he worked hard in his game. And he's a good guy as well. He's willing to take advice from any player. He was a good guy on the pitch. You could tell him anything, and he would listen. And I'm pleased for him.
Yeah, and you speak of cup runs as well there, because obviously you went on to beat Norwich City whilst at Luton, which I think is a bit of history there because it's the biggest sort of difference between clubs or something like that, and with a National League club winning over a Premier League club at the time. But how fantastic was that to come up against a Premier League club like Norwich at the time and beat them in the cup?
Yeah, great day out. They had some big names. I mean, Harry Kane was playing for Norwich at the time, but he was on loan from Tottenham, but yeah, we went there. I'll be honest, we went there and we were confident. We had a game plan. I think I had a lot of friends and family come down to watch that game, sort of expecting a 4-5-0 loss. But I knew, what players we had there. Sort of Andre Gray, we had a solid defence, and I just thought, if things go our way, we can beat Norwich because I know what the FA Cup's like, and I know teams sort of underestimate you, and we prepared really well for that game, and. Fantastic day out, fantastic experience, and like you say, a bit of history there.
Yeah, and you seem to always do obviously you did it at Forest Green, did it at York, did it at Luton. Did you find there's just more incentive in the cup?
I don't know. Yeah, I mean the FA Cup's been really good to me. I think I went a good 5, 6, 7 years. Getting to the third round minimum, every year. That's from a League Two and a Conference Club every year, and it was just going really well. Look, unfortunately for me, I never drew a big one. I never drew a Man United or a Liverpool or a Man City. There's still time yet. I'm still playing, but I think that was, if I could have drawn a really big one. I mean, we knocked Norwich out in the fourth round, I think it was.
Yeah.
And then we drew Millwall, and I think there were 4 teams left when we drew Millwall. There was Luton, Millwall, Man United and Man City, I think. And we got Millwall and Man United, but still, we drew Millwall thinking, we can get through here. But yeah, I don't know what it is with the cup, but yeah, it does seem to bring out, the best of me.
Yeah, and obviously whilst she was at Luton as well, John Stilton over. John Stilton's known for being a bit of a non-league legend whilst he was at Dagenham Redbridge, I think he was as well. What was it like working with John Stilton? Because obviously he's got so much experience behind him, because I think he was quite an old manager.
Yeah, he's one of the oldest, and I think he's retired now. But John was great for Luton at the time in terms of he knows the National League, the conference, like the back of his hand. He's won it before. He knows what's required, and he just, Luton got the right man there, and he was great to work for him. He just proper football man. Sort of let me get on with my job. Really, never really sort of, got too involved. You just knew what he expected of you, and if you got on with that, he just left you to it, and fortunately for us, we were winning most weeks, so it was a good time, to play under him.
Yeah, and you were also from non-league. So just how happy were you to be back into league football? Were you perhaps a bit worried that you might not adapt as well as you had the other times?
No, I was buzzing. I mean, I'd broken my leg that season, a double leg break. So for me, it was a bit of a different. Yeah, I broke my leg against Barnet on Boxing Day, which was a potential career-ending injury. I've still got metal bars in my leg now, which I play with today. Screws and nails all down my right leg due to that injury, but I fought back hard to get back from that, and with the help of my family. And I think for me, I couldn't wait to get back on the pitch, whatever league it was in. But for us to get promotion, having played a big part of it, was brilliant. And I just knew, being a club like Luton in League Two, it was going to be good. We were going to have big crowds, going to be big games, and I was looking forward to it.
Yeah, and you mentioned your injury there as well. What sort of mental difficulties did you have to overcome to return from that?
Yeah, it wasn't mentally, it wasn't too bad. I was so hungry to get back. It was sort of, I think it was more physically, can I get back to where I want to be? I'm playing with this metal in my leg through doing a really bad, and I was known for getting stuck in myself, and it was sort of the physically, am I going to be able to do that? Am I going to be able to get up and down the same? Am I going to have the same pace, the same fitness? But unfortunately for me, I managed to get back. Like I said, I had a lot of support from my family and friends, and I managed to get back. And I feel like I got back to where I want to be, because in the following season in League Two, I had probably one of my best seasons.
Yeah. And then Nathan Jones came into the club. He's still at the club nowadays, obviously, but he moved away to Stoke and came back. But with him now managing the club in the Championship, how good of a manager was he? Could you tell that he had the ability to manage at that level?
Yeah, from day one, he was so passionate. You could see, and there's a lot of managers like that now. James Rose a little bit like that at Chesterfield in terms of this is their life. They've given their life up to get this opportunity. They've travelled the world watching people coach and learning, and they've done all the coaching badges to the book. And they're so focused and desperate to do well that they give it absolute everything. They work all hours of the day, to tactically and analyze everything. And Nathan's like that. And at the time, League Two, there weren't probably many like him. And Luton got a good manager there who's desperate to do well, not only for himself but for the club. And I can see he's a clever guy, and he's getting, he's put the work in to get where he is now.
And in your final year with the club in the 2016-17 season, Luton got to the playoff semi-finals, but unfortunately did lose out to Blackpool. Obviously, you contributed quite a lot to that season. And then when you got to the actual playoff semi-final, you weren't involved in the squad. Were you disappointed by this, or were you just hoping you could get?
Yeah, I was on the bench in both games of the playoffs, and both times I was close to getting on. But I think Nathan will admit himself, that he got a few things wrong in them playoff games. We should have gone up. We're one of the best teams in that league, and we should have. We were leading in that playoff game with 10 minutes to go, and a mistake cost us. But I did love my time there, and I think we should have gone up that season. There's no doubt about it. I think we'd beaten Blackpool both times in the league comfortably, and then to get knocked out in the playoffs by a stupid mistake, we let ourselves down a little bit there. But the club was no doubt going one way.
Yeah, and in that season, what you played alongside Danny Hilton, who went on to get 21 goals in the league, 27 altogether. How good of a striker is he? Because I believe he's still playing with them now in the Championship.
Yeah, he's a bit of a pest. He's sort of a hard-working striker who gives everything for the team. He's just a great guy to have up there. He's a good focal point. He's a good character around the place, and I played against Danny Hilton a lot before he signed for Luton. But I never really appreciate what he did until I played with him. And I thought, actually, yeah, I can see what he does. And I'm playing with a player now at the moment. Well, a player in our squad at the moment at Chesterfield called Akwasi Asante. And he reminds me so much of Danny Hilton, the way he plays. And they're both, strong strikers who get hold of the ball. And especially in the lower leagues, you need that. You need a striker who's going to take the hits. And them guys, willing to take the hits.
Yeah, and after 5 years at the club, you did move on to Stevenage. What sort of prompted this move?
Yeah, I would have loved to have stayed at Luton. I knew the club were going one way. I was enjoying it there. I loved the fans, loved the players, lived in the area. My partner, Lisa, works in the area too. She got settled with a job, and I would have loved to have stayed there. And that was part of the reason why I sort of went to Stevenage. There was opportunities to go elsewhere, I'll be honest. I could have gone to Lincoln at the time. Danny Cowley was interested in taking me up there. But it was going to be another big relocate. And at the time, Stevenage was showing really strong interest in bringing me. It was sort of Luton to Stevenage is sort of 20-minute drive from where I was living. And they offered me a decent contract. Like I say, my partner had a good job in the area, what she wouldn't have had to give up if we decide to go to Lincoln, or do I move up there? It was just sort of not a perfect move, but a sort of, a good move for me in terms of locality as well. And the manager, was very keen to get me. I felt like I was going to be a big part of that team. So I thought, you know what, let's go to Stevenage. It'll keep my life as it is, and I can, go there and enjoy my football.
Yeah, and the manager was Darren. Am I right? I think it was Darren Sall.
Yeah, Sally. Yeah.
Yeah, and you've been with Chesterfield for quite a few years now in the National League. But he's been managing Yeovil Town during his time. So do you find Wayne coming up against a manager who's previously obviously coached you? Do you find it's more difficult to play them because he might have already had a game plan because he knows how you play?
Yeah, I mean, maybe you have to ask him that. But Sarley, is a great guy, and I got on with him really well. And he's doing well now at Yeovil. And fair play to Yeovil sticking with him because they had such a tough start to the season. And I said to many people that Sarley is a good coach and a good manager, and he'll get that right eventually. And he's starting to do that now. But yeah, it is interesting playing against your old manager. I've done that this season when we played down there at Yeovil, and it is a strange one to play against sort of his team. But yeah, I had a good chat after the game, and there's a lot of respect there because I do get on with him well.
You're playing Yeovil this weekend as well, aren't you?
Yeah, we got Yeovil on Saturday. Yeah, so that's another one, an interesting one.
Yeah. But also whilst at Stevenage, then. You played alongside Danny Newton, who has had a good season, but he made his way up through non-league. So do you find that at league level, there's more players who, this is a bit of a strange question, sorry, but more players who have come up through non-league to that level, or more players who have dropped down the leagues?
It's a bit of a mix, really, but, Danny Newton's a great example of, a hungry guy coming up through the leagues, desperate to make it, will run for a brick wall to, prove his worth. And, I was... I sort of was desperate for Danny Newton to come to Chesterfield last summer because I just think he's, a brilliant player in these lower leagues because he will run till he drops, and he's got an attitude where he wants to prove himself. And I think that's what you find from the ones coming from lower down in terms of they're fighting for their lives. A lot of them have had jobs and, they're fighting for their careers. Whereas I think sometimes the ones that have come from higher who've had the big money and sort of dropped down, it becomes a bit of a motivation struggle for them to, try and get themselves going again. Whereas the ones coming sometimes from lower, if you can get the right ones, like your Danny Newtons and your Andre Grays and, the sort of players, even your Jamie Vardys, you find that they're hungry and they want to fight for everything because they've had to get where they are.
Yeah. And then obviously from Stevenage, you joined Chesterfield. You joined under Martin Allen, who unfortunately didn't last very long at the club. So as a player then, is it sort of mentally a bit, not mentally, is it sort of a bit strange then when a manager signs you, he isn't there himself very long, so you have to quickly work under the regime of a new manager? Do you find it might affect your progress at a club in any way?
Yeah, he can, especially lower down, because these managers come in and they want to bring their own players in. They want to do it their way. Some of them have trust issues in terms of, I want to bring these players in because I think all managers know at some point they're going to get sacked. So they want to get sacked doing it their way and people they can trust. But yeah, I was gutted when, Martin Allen left because he was such a great football guy. One of the, I don't think I've ever laughed so much every day in football than I had under him. And in such a short space of time, he made such an impact on me that, I would have loved to him to stay longer. But unfortunately, things didn't really work for him there in terms of he had a lot of injuries. Results were, I think we had the longest ever unbeaten record for Chesterfield. But it was draws. We drew 13, 14 games in a row. And in the end, it just cost the job because we just couldn't climb the league. We were just stuck in the same position, drawing. And draws don't get you anywhere, you see. They just keep you where they are. And although we were unbeaten for so long, when we finally did lose, then we dropped down and the club decided to move on, which was, disappointing for me because I did, love playing for him and I think he was a great guy.
Yeah, and whilst at Chesterfield, then you also in that first season played against, actually in the second season as well, but played against Danny Rowe for AFC Fylde. I'm a Bradford fan, so I absolutely love him right now because he's doing well for us. But obviously, he scored 26 goals in the first season, and you were at Chesterfield. What was it like? Sorry, my thing just went off there. What was it like playing against a striker with his sort of capabilities?
Yeah, Danny Rowe's non-proven goal scorer at this level, and I think when you play against sort of a team like Fylde, I think the main thing is, we need to make sure you don't let Danny Rowe shoot because he's got one of the best shots, the hardest shots in the league. So I think whenever we used to play a Fylde, it was always a plan where you can't give him time to shoot because he's capable of scoring from distance. And Danny Rowe's a great striker to have in National League 2 because I think you pretty much guarantee goals with him. If he gets chances, he will score. And I think at the right club, obviously, great for Danny to be playing at such a big club like Bradford now. Where I think scoring goals there is it's a great place to be if the fans get on side at that sort of club.
Yeah, and I kind of scripted this terribly. I don't know why I went into that Danny Rowe question. It just came up on my screen, so I noticed it. But John Pemberton was also manager at Chesterfield whilst you were there. And we briefly discussed it before we started the podcast. But obviously, he was manager of Kidderminster Harriers before that, who at the time he said he wanted to sign you when he was at Kidderminster. So would you be interested in dropping down to the National League North to work at a club like Kidderminster?
I would have been interested in work under Pembo because I know he's such a good football man, a good coach, and knows his football. But for me at the time, it was at the age I was at. Do I want to be dropping down to Conference North, a few hours away from my house? Financially, it wouldn't have been great. It would have been a big commute. So at the time, it just wasn't right for me because I had massive plans to get back in the team at Chesterfield. I'd only been out a couple of games, and it was sort of, I know I'm going to get back in here at some point, so let's just hold my horses a little bit.
Yeah, and then you did go on to sign a new contract with Chesterfield. What sort of influenced that decision?
Just the size of the club and the enjoyment more than anything. I mean, I took probably a 75% cut in the summer to stay at Chesterfield. I could have got, in terms of financially, I could have got a lot more dropping down to part-time football. But for me at this point, it wasn't about that. I'm 34 now, and it was more, where am I going to enjoy these last few years of my football, to be honest? And the pandemic struck, and it was difficult for the club to sort of give any deals out at the time. But I was so keen to get it done. I was willing to take that massive cut to, just keep playing, really. It was more, I weren't ready to drop down, even if the money was better. I wanted to keep playing at the level I know I'm at least good enough to play at. I believe that I'm good enough to play at this level in the league above. And I just thought, if I drop, that's probably it. That's probably it then in terms of playing in front of big crowds at big stages like Chesterfield. So it was more. It's more, let's take the cut and stay at a club and keep going.
Yeah, and fairness, you mentioned enjoying the final sort of years of your career. James Rowe recently came into Chesterfield. He's done really well there. What's it like working under him? Because obviously he's had this massive sort of upturn in Chesterfield, in turning around form. They're going up in the right direction now. What's it like working under him?
Yeah, he's, like I said, he reminds me of Nathan Jones a little bit in terms of he's give it his life. You can see he's give it his life to get to this point, to get this opportunity. And obviously knows his football. He's a very good coach, knows the game, and I think he's going to go on. I think he's going to go on to good things. I think he's a very clever guy who, obviously studies football very hard and studies the science behind it. And I think he's done well for Chesterfield so far. Yeah, I mean, I think he'd signed 14 or 15 new players, and he's really turned the club around, really. And fair play to him for being brave and doing that. And I think long term he's a good choice for the club. Yeah,
and I think the only thing that can really sort of derail Chesterfield's good form right now is potentially what might happen to the National League season. But of course, the National League North South is now being null and voided. There's a lot of speculation about what's going to be happening with the National League. It looks like they're going to be playing on. But do you have any thoughts about the lower league clubs having to null and void their leagues?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, I've got friends who are at Chorley, and they were desperate to carry on. They're still training now, hoping that something's going to get sorted out, like a mini league between the ones that are going to carry on. Because they've had such a good cup run. They've got, plenty of money behind them due to their cup run. that they don't want to stop. And, I do feel sorry for some of them teams, but obviously for others, there's funding issues, and I think no crowds is massive, especially at this sort of level. I mean, I've personally playing this season with no crowds has probably been the least enjoyable season I've had, and I think most players will say the same, whether the top or bottom, whether you win or lose, it's just not the same without the fans. For me, I miss the buzz that the fans bring, and it's just, it's I think for the better of the game, for everything, we need to get the fans back for the even for this money for the smaller clubs, but even for the atmosphere, for the players. It's just, personally for me, it's just nowhere near as enjoyable without the fans.
Yeah, and the last sort of thing from me then is, obviously you're 34 now. You mentioned before you sort of entered the last few years of your career. Do you have any interest in sort of going into coaching when eventually your playing career just comes to an end?
Yeah, potentially. I mean, I've got a degree behind me. I've got my coaching badges behind me. I've sort of prepared as best I can for sort of, the transition. I mean, it's difficult. You do football for so long, 17, 18 years I've been doing it for now professionally. And then, sooner or later, whether it's next season or the season after, I'm going to be, having to do something else, whether it's still play part-time alongside doing something else, but I've tried to prepare best I can. But yeah, I'd love to stay involved in the game somehow, whether that's through coaching or, being in academies or whatever. But I'm trying to, get as much behind me as I can now to give me those opportunities.
Yeah, and I think that is all we have time for this week. So that's going to bring an end to this week's episode of the Benchwarmers Podcast. I'd like to thank my guest this week, Jonathan Smith.
Thanks very much, Gabriel. Nice to be involved, and thanks for the invite.
Yeah, no worries. Hopefully we could have you again sometime in the future. But we'll see you all next week.